Hi, this is Colette with a reading of an excerpt from my book, Karma City, Ouija Tarot by Colette Brown. This is chapter 12, and it's called The Hanged Man, and this matches up with the tarot card of the Hanged Man in the Major Arcana. This book is about the Fool of the Tarot being reincarnated into the East End of Glasgow and having an urban existence without actually knowing, obviously, that he is the Fool or a very spiritual being. So this is part of the Hanged Man, and if you listen to the weekly tarot card and you see the Hanged Man comes up, this is some of the thinking behind it, but it's fiction. I was thinking about things that scare me, Claire, not the big things like death or going blind, mostly the phobias and the silly fears that come from some bad experience. I used to suffer from nightmares a lot, and most of them were about being suspended upside down or falling from high up. I never actually hit the ground in these dreams. They were just about a fear of falling or being hung. Aileen's friend, the past life therapist, said I could have been some sort of rebel in a past life who was hung upside down for his treason. I liked the idea of being a rebel. I was afraid of cliffs and edges of buildings, but I think that was because of falling off Cask and Brace when I was a kid. I was also afraid of snakes, and for no apparent reason, the number 4. I liked St Patrick's Day celebrations, but was always scared of 4-leaf shamrocks for some reason, and stories about leprechauns just gave me the creeps. I never liked Egyptian art, and pictures of that god Anubis scared me witless. So many fears. So earlier this year I decided to do a kind of bucket list of fears I would face up to and overcome. The first one I tackled was also the last. I decided that I would overcome my fear of hanging upside down by going on a fairground ride that did just that, and at a great height too. We, Stevie and his family, were going to a theme park that had all sorts of thrilling rides. There was one that was simply a giant claw that you sat in, feet dangling while it spun you about in a huge arc while the claw turned you this way and that way and upside down. The kids went on first and came off all green and ready to be sick and full of how brilliant it was. None of the adults would go on with me, so I ended up like Johnny No Pals and went on it myself. I was strapped in, and there was the worst wait before it started to spin us round and gain height. I was terrified as I saw how high up I was and how fast it was spinning us round. I was feeling sick with fear and all the motion, and I thought it couldn't get any worse. Then the damn thing flipped me upside down so that I was seeing the world from a different angle, and it was so disorientating being upside down and spinning. I thought it couldn't get any worse again, and then it stopped. Yes, it just stopped, with 20 of his poor sods hanging upside down 50 metres above the ground. I'd watched it about 3 times before, and it had never stopped like this. Real fear began to climb up my spine. The machine had jammed. Some women started to scream, and one man just threw up, well, down actually. People down below grasped what was going on and looked up at their loved ones and started praying. Up where I was, the screaming stopped, and it was eerily quiet. My worst nightmare, and I was really in it. I looked at my watch, and it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The sun was blazing down on us, and the metal bars and constraints were getting hot and sweaty. All my blood was rushing to my head, and I felt I was going to faint. I think I did pass out for a few minutes, and then came to, jolted back to the reality of fear and worry about how we would all get down. I was the last person to be freed at 1 o'clock in the following morning. By then it was dark and cold, and I would never be the same again. The first half hour was the worst. All the fears and anxieties flooded through me, and I wondered just why I'd put myself in this position. I have to admit I was close to tears, but there was a teenage boy in the seat next to me, and I felt I had to be brave for him. He was looking like he was going to freak out. The fire brigade arrived to a big cheer, but then hope was dashed when their ladders proved too short to reach us. 2 hours passed, and a man with a loudspeaker told us to try and cover our heads so we didn't get sunstroke, and keep moving our feet to keep the circulation going. People started to need the toilet, and there was no option but just to wet themselves. I think it was then that I realised I might have a prostate disorder, as I had already succumbed in the first hour. I'd loosened my jeans a bit, and as I did so, pound coins fell out of my pocket and plummeted to the ground like silver shooting stars. Some kids were in luck that day, pennies from heaven. Sometimes someone would start to cry, and people in chairs near them would soothe them with quiet words. I had no jokes in me, no banter. I was just so frightened. Then something odd happened. I became fascinated by the way the sea looked upside down. It was bizarre, and I kept expecting the water to fall into the sky, but it didn't. The sun was setting the wrong way, but it looked perfectly right as I was getting used to it. Seagulls flew by on their backs. The people on the ground looked like they were in that Lionel Richie video about dancing on the ceiling, only it didn't look fake or as though the camera had just been turned upside down. All the weight was on my shoulders, not on my backside, and my legs by this time were dangling down towards my arms. I felt weightless and in an odd way secure. The more I relaxed and just hung there, the more I felt like I had no responsibilities, no need to worry about the gas bill or how I now missed my blood pressure tablets. If I was going to die, then I was going to die. There wasn't anything I could do about it. Everything was in suspension in life, and I was just simply there in the moment. By 10 o'clock, the sun was going down. There was mist over the sea, and almost half the people had been taken down by a mountain rescue team who had all sorts of ropes and pulleys and carriages. I wasn't really aware of it all. You see, Claire, I think my conscious mind had kind of shifted away from the fear, and I had found a way into my subconscious. This had happened once before when I experienced a Native American sweat lodge up north with Aileen. That was one intense experience with heat and chants, but this hanging upside down for hours was something else again. I must have been cold, but I didn't feel it. I didn't really feel anything physical anymore. I was numb, but the hallucinations were coming thick and wild. A crow came and sat on my good foot. He looked at me, and I felt he was telling me about wisdom I had in the past and the mists of time. Then I thought I saw my birth, but instead of me being born, there was a baby bird, all fragile and tender. At one point I saw myself as a jester, juggling, burning wands for my queen. Then there was nothing. I was nothing, and nothing was me. I don't have the words to express it all, but that night I felt I had all the answers I ever needed or ever would. Stevie was waiting in the ambulance that took me to hospital. He was white with worry and couldn't even muster a joke. I was home the next day with some horrible drinks to help with dehydration and some strong painkillers for my aching muscles. The first thing I did was to throw my bucket list of phobias in the bin. And that's Karma City, The Hanged Man. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you like me reading to you from my books, give me the thumbs up and comment, and we'll see where we go with it. And if you are interested in Karma City, Ouija Tarot, it's on Amazon in book and also Kindle. Also, remember, if you're interested in the tarot and learning the tarot, that this is it's my way of explaining the major arcana in a fictional way so that you absorb it rather than maybe have to totally learn archetypes that you don't really understand. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Many blessings. Bye now.